The third chapter of Genesis introduces one of the most consequential conversations in biblical history, a seemingly innocent exchange that demonstrates timeless manipulation tactics still prevalent today. This pivotal moment centers on a single loaded question from the serpent to Eve. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? This interaction would ultimately reshape human history through a masterclass in psychological manipulation. This question wasn't merely seeking information. It employed a sophisticated manipulation strategy. The serpent deliberately misrepresented God's actual command, which had allowed Adam and Eve to eat from every tree except one. By framing the single restriction as a total prohibition, the serpent used the first key strategy of manipulation, making a reasonable boundary appear as complete deprivation. The tactic works by creating an emotional response that overwhelms logical thinking. This manipulation strategy remains remarkably effective in modern contexts. In professional settings, someone might ask, "Are you really going to let your boss control every move you make?" In personal relationships, you might hear, "Don't you think it's unhealthy to have so many rules?" In marketing, subtle messages suggest, "Without this product, you're missing out on life." These questions follow the same pattern. They reframe protective boundaries as oppressive restrictions that limit rather than safeguard. The interaction between Eve and the serpent reveals a second manipulation strategy. When Eve attempted to correct the serpent's mischaracterization, she was already playing defense. By explaining and justifying the boundary, she inadvertently positioned herself as defending something potentially burdensome rather than beneficial. This defensive posture made her more vulnerable to the serpent's next move. The very act of defending a boundary can sometimes weaken our commitment to it. The third strategy emerged when the serpent directly contradicted God's warning about the consequences of eating the forbidden fruit. "You will not certainly die." This denial of consequences completes a three-part manipulation playbook. Make the boundary feel oppressive, force defensive justification, and minimize the perceived risks of transgression. This progression demonstrates how manipulation often moves from subtle questioning to outright contradiction. The text highlights a crucial insight. The battle wasn't lost when Eve ate the fruit. It was lost when she allowed the serpent's question to reshape her understanding of the boundary. This psychological shift from seeing boundaries as protection to viewing them as limitation is what makes manipulation so effective. Once someone accepts the frame that their boundary is unfair or unnecessary, crossing that line becomes almost inevitable. To resist these tactics, the passage outlines a practical four-step process that can be applied in any situation where boundaries are being challenged. First, spot the frame. Learn to recognize when questions are attempting to reposition your boundaries as problems. This requires developing awareness of how questions can carry hidden assumptions and agendas. Second, check the assumption. Analyze whether the question accurately represents the situation or contains hidden premises. Ask yourself, what does this question assume? Is this framing accurate or is it exaggerated? Who benefits if I believe this perspective? This critical analysis helps maintain clarity about the true nature of the boundary. Third, name the purpose. Actively remind yourself why the boundary exists in the first place. Every meaningful boundary serves a protective function, and maintaining awareness of that purpose strengthens resolve. This step is crucial because forgotten purposes lead to abandoned boundaries. Fourth, stand firm. Remember that you don't need to defend or justify your boundaries. A clear no is sufficient. The need to explain and defend often comes from accepting the manipulator's frame that the boundary requires justification. The text provides specific examples to illustrate these principles. Consider someone with strict work hours being challenged with, "You're so rigid, why not answer messages anytime?" Without remembering the boundary's purpose, protecting family time and personal health, it becomes easier to compromise. Similarly, when faced with pressure to bend ethical rules for profit, losing sight of the moral foundation makes rationalization more likely. One particularly notable aspect of Eve's response was her imprecise restatement of God's command. She added that they must not even touch the forbidden fruit, a detail not present in the original instruction. This elaboration actually weakened her position by muddying the clear boundary God had set. The lesson here is that precise, accurate understanding of our boundaries makes them easier to maintain. Adding unnecessary restrictions can make boundaries feel more burdensome and harder to defend. The passage emphasizes that strong boundaries naturally attract challenges. Rather than indicating a problem, this opposition often signals that something valuable is being protected. The key is maintaining clarity about why the boundaries exist and resisting the urge to defend or justify them when questioned. The strength of a boundary isn't measured by its lack of opposition, but by its resilience in the face of challenges. Looking toward future implications, the text suggests that small compromises in boundaries can lead to larger transgressions. When we allow our protective limits to be reframed as unnecessary restrictions, we become more susceptible to crossing lines we once considered inviolable. This progression from small compromises to major transgressions often begins with accepting seemingly innocent questions that challenge our boundaries. The enduring relevance of this ancient narrative lies in its revelation of manipulation tactics that remain unchanged. Whether in personal relationships, professional settings, or moral decisions, the strategy of using questions to invert desire and reshape understanding continues to be effective. The antidote remains the same: maintaining clear awareness of our boundaries' purposes and resisting the urge to defend them against manipulative questioning. The final message emphasizes that questions can be more dangerous than direct arguments because they work subtly to reshape our thinking. The key to maintaining healthy boundaries isn't in winning arguments, but in protecting our clarity about why those boundaries exist in the first place. By understanding these manipulation tactics and having a clear strategy to resist them, we can better protect our boundaries and the values they safeguard.